Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Everyone, welcome to this presentation, Surah Yusuf, chapter 12, and today we will cover verses 93 to 104. And these are the references and our contact. Now, a few verses as a reminder for us. I included these verses, I thought, to remind ourselves, because all of us need some reminding from the Quran. The first verse is Afalam yasiru fil arde fayanzuru kaifa kana akibatul lazina min qablihim kanu aksara minhum wa ashadda quwwatan wa asaran fil arde fama agna anhum ma kanu yaksibun. This is a famous verse from 40th, which says, do they not travel through the earth and see what was the end of those before them? They were more in numbers than these and superior in strength, and in the traces they have left behind in the land as signs. Yet all that they accomplished was of no profit to them. In fact, this is very interesting because this verse points to what is going on around us, and we can always discuss it at some point in more detail. Next verse is وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. The Quran says, thus do we make the evildoers turn against each other because of what they do. This is very interesting that people, once they do injustices to each other, then they become into groups, they become parties. And this is what is happening in the world. And we can see it right from a micro scale to macro scale. The next one is فَمَا بَقَتْ عَلَيْهُمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضُ وَمَا كَانُوا مُنْذَرِينَ. And neither heavens nor earth shed a tear over them, nor were they given respite. And this is something for us as well, that what is going on in the world, once it turns into something more consequential, then we will see that how the law of requital functions in the world and how the results will come before us, which is already we are witnessing the decline in one part of the world, and their power is going down, and on the other side there is some forces which are standing against it. Now, where we are in Surah Yusuf, having been through the challenges in his life after facing his brothers and the caravan people, Yusuf landed in Egypt in the palace of the Aziz. He acquires an eminent self by following the guidance of Wahi and reaches the state of being among Muhsineen as defined by Allah in the Quran. He is ready for the challenges of a non-Deen society. Next is the wife of Aziz and her women companions try to molest Yusuf against his own self. Yusuf stands up to evil firmly and steadfastly, and as a consequence lands up in prison. Next one is in the prison. He professes his firm iman in Allah and his law and informs others about it. One of the prisoners whose dream Yusuf interprets successfully returns to the king by getting his job back as a manager of drinks in the palace. The king dreams a vision and Yusuf interprets it for him via this ex-prisoner. Yusuf gets his case with the ladies investigated by the king and is proved to be innocent of any crime. Now, the king, being impressed and convinced of the fidelity, integrity, and trustworthiness of Yusuf, discusses the issues facing Egypt with him, and Yusuf takes over the responsibility of managing the economic affairs following agreement with the king. Thus, he becomes established as Aziz in Egypt. That means he now possessed power. During the years of famine, Yusuf's brothers also come to get grain for their family. Yusuf meets them and asks them to bring their younger brother. And we have gone through these details in our previous presentations. And he is the real brother of Yusuf. Next time, and when they come with him, one of these brothers stores the royal measuring goblet in the sack of Yusuf's real brother. As a punishment, Binyamin is held back for allegedly stealing this goblet. The last is Yusuf's brothers return later for more help with food, and this time Yusuf discloses his identity to them. He forgives them for their injustice towards him and his real brother. And these details were covered in our last presentation. Now, let us move to the next one. Yusuf provides his shirt as a sign for his father. Azhabu be kamisi haza falkuhu ala wajhe abi yati basiran wa atuni bi ahlikum ajma'in. So Yusuf tells his brothers, return home and take this shirt of mine with you, which is a physical sign of my status and prestige. because he was Aziz over there, so he had a shirt which probably had some kind of a logos on it. So he gives it as a sample to his brothers to take it back and show it to their father. When you present it before our father, he will understand the whole matter and he will believe whatever you recount to him. So it's very interesting that he says that he will believe, the words used are basiran, that he could see that what is my status and how the things have gone. Then bring the whole family, come back here. So he tells them that now the time has come that all of you should come to Egypt, because this is where things are better. وَلَمَّا فَصَلَتِ الْإِيرُ قَالَ أَبُوهُمْ إِنِّي لَأَجِدُ رِيحَ يُوسُفَ لَوْلَا أَن تُفَنِّدُونِ. Now in verse 1293, while this is happening in Egypt, in Canaan, what is happening is when the caravan of the brothers of Yusuf set off, Yaqub began to say to people that if you people will not presume that my intellect has become senile in old age, I can sense the fragrance of Yusuf and his prestige and stature. So this is very interesting, that tells the family around who do not know that what is happening in Egypt. He got the indications that something good is going to happen, and he could smell that Yusuf is alive and he is in a position of power. And this becomes clearer in the next verses. Verses 93 and 94, some reflections. Now Yusuf hands over the upper part of his apparel, which bears the logo of his high stature as Aziz, as an evidence for his father, to confirm that he is alive and has achieved a position of power. If we recall previously, these same brothers had brought the shirt of Yusuf falsely stained with blood to Yaqub. And I've quoted the verse here. It's worth going back and having a look. And over there, these brothers had told their father, وَجَاءُوا عَلَىٰ قَمِيصِهِ بِدَامٍ كَاذِبٍ, that is, they came back with the shirt of Yusuf with false blood on it. Here again, Yusuf displays an extremely high sense of responsibility and conscientiousness by not rushing back to Canaan to see his father and the rest of the family. This is, in my view, is important to understand that he does not leave his position of responsibility. And if you remember, those were the days of slow movement, and the caravans used to take weeks. If he had to go back and meet his father, which he might have liked to go back because he hadn't seen him for decades, but he does not go back because what he's doing is taking priority. He's handling a famine and dealing with wide population issues. This points to the state of his intellect and emotions being entirely guided by the light of Wahi, a great lesson for our guidance in any future establishment of being. So this is an important point in my view, that we should keep it in mind, that when we get a very high degree of responsibility, then we need to look into it in the light of Wahi and not to get emotive. While this is happening here in Egypt between Yusuf and his brothers, the father Yaqub gets some premonition guided by Wahi's light that Yusuf is alive, and in eager anticipation he shares and expresses his sentiments with his family members and others around him. At the same time, he also knows that they will not believe him, and they should not, as they do not have Iman in Wahi. So this is the difference between the two, and Quran very clearly discerns between the two. And this is something for us as well, because of our own understanding now enhanced in the light of the Wahi, so we can see events differently, even in the world. But he is very certain in the light of his understanding of Wahi. Now next is Yaqub finally presents evidence of guidance from Allah. قَالُوا تَعَلَّهِ إِنَّكَ لَفِي ظَلَالِكَ الْقَدِيمِ. So the response from the family around him who do not have access to Wahi, or who do not want Wahi, because it is impossible that if Yaqub is the messenger of Allah and he was passing on information of Wahi to everyone, but obviously they made a choice not to accept it. Those who heard said, by Allah, you are still lost in your old obsession. Every sign of Yusuf has vanished and you are sensing the fragrance of his prestige and stature. So they thought that old man has gone insane. Next one is Falamman Jal Bashirul Kahu ala Wajhi Fartadda Basiran Kala Alama Kullakum Inni Alamu Minallahi Mala Talamun. So over here I've highlighted Inni Alamu Minallahi Mala Talamun, and this is something which needs our very intense and focused reflection. In the meantime, that caravan reached Canaan, and the shirt of Yusuf was presented to Yaqub with glad tidings. And he believed that Yusuf is definitely alive and also the possessor of this degree of eminence and status. He said to the people, now the evidence came before him, and what he had said in the light of Wahi and his understanding that Allah will not waste the good deeds of Yusuf. So in that light, he had predicted that he's alive and he's in a position of power, and he had seen the signs as well. He said to the people, did I not tell you that I have been given that knowledge from Allah which you have not been given? And they have not been given because they do not want to seek it. And that is the point over here which Quran is making, that if you want to gain knowledge and you start thinking in the light of Wahi, you will also be able to think like Yaqub, Yusuf. Verses 95 and 96, the Quran refers to two types of human understandings. First one is verse 1295. Here the response is noted of those who have no clue about the functioning of the Wahi of Allah. This is something we need to be aware in people when giving the message of the Quran to them. So my comment over here is that this is a great instruction for us as well. If we talk to the people and they are not interested in the Quran, then we should leave them alone. It is their choice. They don't want to enhance their understanding. That's fine. They live on a day-to-day basis dictated by their emotions and desires and are not ready to examine the serious side of life, which essentially means that they are not serious about this life. They don't think that the life will end with death, and even if it ends with death, if there is a hereafter. So these are combination of things which we have already discussed, but we should keep reminding ourselves all the time. The next verse, 1296, sums up the conviction of the Messenger of Allah, Yaqub alayhi salam, who was convinced of the guidance of Wahi and was continuously sharing it with his family and those around him, likely even the tribe. His receipt of information of Yusuf's well-being based on the evidence of his shirt pointing to his being Aziz is as a consequence of Allah's law based on Iman and solid deeds, which leads to fruition. Next one is the conclusion of the verse is absolutely brilliant by Allah. Inni alamu min Allahi ma la ta'lamun. And see, Allah has used his own name which has all attributes. So when Allah says that I know from Allah, or we say we know from Allah in the light of the Quran, we take into account all his attributes. So the conclusion of the verse is something we need to acquire through enhancing our understanding of the Quran. So all this effort which we are making and through question answer session and discussions and our presentations, we are enhancing our knowledge of Allah's way. As we progress in our understanding on this path and increase our knowledge of world events, we can observe those signs which can provide us with clues about the trend of events in our life and the world in which we live. In fact, we are very lucky and that we are living in an era now where things have started to move at an exponential scale. And very interesting years are ahead. And I hope we have enough life to witness those. It is important to collaborate and discuss these collectively. We will explore this aspect further as we study and analyze in more detail. Sons ask for forgiveness for their crimes from their father. قَالُوا يَا بَانَا أَسْتَغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا إِنَّا كُنَّا خَاطِئِينَ. Now, after handing over the shirt to their father, now the question came that why did they do all this? And now they are confronted in the light of the law of requital. So they say the son said to the father that we are great offenders, though we are not deserving of forgiveness, but still it is our request that you ask for forgiveness for us. The next verse is Qala Safa Astaghfir lakum Rabbi innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. See, remember what Hazrat Yusuf told them, La tasriba alaykumul jawma. And over here, Quran has not repeated those words, but Yaqub exactly does the same. He said, I will supplicate for the means of protection from my Rabb for you. This is because in the law of requital, there is an allowance for protection and rahmat for those who turn away from crimes. In front of Hazrat Yaqub, all things were in front of him like a picture. He witnessed it himself, what sons did to him and Yusuf. But what he says is, I will supplicate for the means of protection from my Rabb for you. And this should be the conduct of a man of Wahi. Sons offer apology to their father and he forgives them and refers them to the law of Allah for forgiveness and nourishment. When the sons returned home, they confessed their crimes before their father, and Yaqub also overlooked these in the same way that Yusuf did. Both are devotees of Allah guided by Wahi. A great lesson for us, great instruction for us. We have to have a very large-heartedness in life. Yaqub is not surprised and knew a time will come when he will confront them with their misdeeds. Here, he did not have to do it as Yusuf had already done the job under the law of requital. The law of requital never spares any wrongdoer unless they mend their ways within the allocated time of respite. Next is, we also need to note here that the sons asked for forgiveness from their father, and he in turn relates this to his Rabb, i.e., as far as this word is concerned. He does not say, I forgive you, as he cannot. This is the guidance of Wahi. Then he elaborates further, leaving them in no doubt that it is Allah's law which needs to be followed to get the benefits of this life and to erase the ill effects of what they have done, i.e., Innahu huwal Ghafurur Rahim. Ghafur followed by Rahim. And we know Ghafur means giving protection and Rahim means to continuing the nourishment. If this is not consciously followed, then there is no chance of developing the self. The next one is, if we remember, Yusuf also says to them that today I do not take this matter any further. So he had said, La tasriba alaykumul yawma yaghfirullahu lakum. And it is through the law of Allah that you will seek protection for yourselves. So as far as this life is concerned, he told them that I'll not take it any further and I will not even remind you about it. Because remember, Yusuf is now in a position of power and all this family will be living under his management and under his control and authority. So he knows that they cannot do any harm to him, even if they continue on the same path on which they were. But obviously they have over here asked for forgiveness and hopefully they wouldn't have done anything further. Now parents arrive in Egypt and Yusuf sums up his feelings on this occasion. The Quran notes, فَلَمَّا دَخَلُوا عَلَى يُوسُفَ آوَى عَلَيْهِ أَبَوَيْهِ وَقَالَ ادْخُلُوا مِصْرَ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ آمِنِينَ. Beautifully summed up by Quran, their arrival, when they reached Yusuf, he had his parents stay particularly close to him and also said to the rest of the family that now, by the will of Allah, you will stay in Egypt peacefully. I.e., since all of this is taking place according to the law of Mashiach of Allah, hence you will live in comfort. Peace is intrinsically linked to living a life according to the divine laws. Next one is a bit longer verse. وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْأَرْشِ وَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا وَقَالَ يَا أَبَتِ هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلُ قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذَا أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِنَ الْبَدْوِ مِنْ بَعْدِ أَنْ نَزَغَ الشَّيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ أَخْوَاتِي Inna Rabbi Latiful Lima Yashau Innahu Huwal Alimul Hakim. Now I have highlighted these points where he mentions that Shaitan caused it between me and my brothers. And then over here the Quran has said that he says that my Rabb knows the finest details. And this is as per his law. And then is of course Alimul Hakim. I will go through the meanings. He made his parents sit on high pedestals of honor and respect, and all his aides, court officials, and servants offered their respect to them because of Yusuf. So this is how it has been translated, that is Lahu Sujjada. And there's a lot more detail in the book, The Meanings of the Quran, Volume 7. It's worth going through that. At that time, Yusuf said, "Oh, father, this is the interpretation of that dream of mine which I had seen so long ago. My Rabb has made the dream into a reality. What a great blessing this is of his that, having brought me out of the prison, he caused me to reach this lofty status. And by ending this gulf of enmity, which Shaitan had imposed between my brothers and myself, brought you all here from the desert, so that everyone can live a life of comfort and respect. The truth is that my Rabb shapes his schemes in a very refined manner and takes them to their completion. Every affair of his is based on knowledge and wisdom." So this is important for us that we concentrate on this, and some of these points I have highlighted in the next slide. Those who have knowledge of Wahi and then follow it view word differently. First one is the first point which is announced by Yusuf is Insha'Allahu Amini. That now according to the law of Allah you will live in peace. Since I know the law of Allah in the light of Wahi, hence there will now be freedom from fear and grief. If we remember that in Surah Al-Baqarah, we have gone through those verses before as well, that Quran said that in case when Wahi comes to you, if you follow Wahi, then you will be free from khawf and huzn. This is the end of the huzn of his father, that is Yaqub, as everything from now onwards will be managed through the system established by the efforts of Yusuf. They will also be free from the worry of being deprived of sustenance. Though it might be the tail end of the famine, but now since they have come to Egypt and now they are staying over there, so their needs will be taken care of. We assume that this was the state for everyone in Egypt. So I put down this comment that we do not expect that Yusuf somehow will give a preferential treatment and direct it in their direction, because he was a man of justice. Verse 1299 refers to a few points which merit reflection. Firstly, the functioning of the law of requital, which has led to the achievement of the fulfillment of his dream. The dream had resulted in the creation of an aim, or it may have been the consequence of this aim, which has now materialized in the physical world. So what he thought, and he made it his aim in the light of Wahi, and then he steadfastly followed it. Secondly, as a consequence of all these struggles of life based on Iman and solid deeds of Yusuf, these have also manifested the strengths and weaknesses of others who were part of this drama in their life. The working of Shaitan became clearly exposed. So we know that Shaitan means their own base desires, which are not guided by Wahi. Thirdly, the finest aspects of Allah's Wahi also manifested, where whatever was in the hearts has been unmasked. So it's very interesting that over a period of 2 decades, everything came out right in front of them at a micro scale. For example, brothers, caravan people, ladies, the king, Yaqub, al-Islam, people of Egypt at all levels. We are given a glimpse of only some of the events in Yusuf's life which are quoted by the Quran for our guidance. The next one is Allah being Alim and Hakim has become manifested through human intellect, character and conduct. All the turmoil which is created by the intellect and emotions of those who do not follow Allah's laws becomes resolved through the hands of those whose intellect is guided by Wahi, as given in the Quran. Now, next one is that next stage of Yusuf's life begins, the consolidation phase, i.e. freedom from fear and grief. Over here now, Hazrat Yusuf sums it up beautifully, and the Quran has put it together for all times to come. Rabbe qad ataitani min al-mulki wa allamtani min ta'wil al-ahadith fatir as-samawati wal ardi anta waliyyi fid dunya wal akhirati tawaffani musliman wal hikmi bis salihin. And I have highlighted some of the main points here, that over here she says he not addresses Allah, he addresses Rabb, because whole thing is part of that rububiyyat. And then mulke wa allamtani, I'll look into it in the next slide. With the memory of all these past events, the heart of Yusuf was filled with the sentiments of gratitude and appreciation, and he entreated, "O my Rabb, how great is your kindness that you made me possessor of such great authority and power, and bestowed on me the knowledge and procedure for advanced planning, which was foresight, and the management of affairs." And next is, "O Creator of the universe, only you are my companion and helper in the present of the future." See, this is very great point to which Quran has drawn our attention when he says, "Fatir as-samawati wal ard," and we will look into it in the next slide. "O Creator of the universe, only you are my companion and helper in the present and the future, the world and the hereafter. Bestow on me the potential that I spend my whole life in obedience to your laws, and that I am included among those righteous people whose full affairs are resolved amicably." So, wal hikmi bis salihin is something which we all want to be part of. And that is important. And this is why Quran says that come together and then make your efforts together united. Now, Yusuf sums up his understanding under Wahi and relates to Rabb as divine attribute of Allah. Just witness the expression of the thought process, emotive makeup, and intellectual acumen of Yusuf when he commences his statement by referring to Allah as Rabb. Rabbe qad ataitani. When we examine his understanding about rububiyyat, it places him far ahead of his time. Right in that time, which is something like 500, 600 BC, He is so clear in the light of Wahi, which even now human beings are not clear. And this is what Wahi does. It places us thousands of years ahead of the time in which we are living. Then he presents the tangible evidence of this rububiyat by describing two important constituents, al-mulke wal alamtani, knowledge resulting in achievement, because without knowledge we can't act. We have to have knowledge, because it is only on the basis of knowledge that we understand what we wish to do and where we are in the world. And in power in the land to solve human issues. And without getting power or access to power, we cannot do it even if we have all the knowledge in the world. The next part is the ultimate peak of understanding of a man of Wahi when he says, Fatir as-samawati wal ardi, creator of things from nothing. So he was very clear, as we are, that Allah is the creator from nothing. And this word he hasn't handed over to the human beings that they can do whatever they like. If we come to Wahi and its guidance and start following its procedure of Iman and Amal Salih, then the results start to appear in front of us as our efforts keep becoming consolidated. Yusuf refers to this fact that what he achieved by following Wahi did not exist until he started to work on this. So there were no signs of any power or any change in the society until Yusuf created that aim in the light of Wahi and then started to work on it steadfastly and turned the abstract into reality, that is, Amr turned into Khalq. The invisible became visible through human effort, and Allah, that is His law, ensured that this materialized within the time scale of one human life with sufficient time to establish this and then reap the benefits of this system. There's a great instruction here for us. I would like every member to go through this paragraph a few times to try to grasp it, that how big advantage we have, that the system of deen has already been defined completely in many finer details by the books of Allama Pervez. And now we are trying to understand it and also follow it. Of course, at this stage, individually we are following it, but Yusuf followed it individually. So we try to consolidate ourselves and develop it to that level where we fully grasp the system of deen. Next is the selves which develop in this way become eligible for the benefits of this life as well as of the hereafter. See how he beautifully sums it up in that verse, Anta wali fid dunya wal akhirah. So he is fully now convinced, because the evidence has come before him that the self which he possesses now is going to be the part of Salihin, because he is part of Salihin. Then he concludes with this strong desire formed under the guidance of Wahi, Tawaffani Musliman wal hikni bis Salihin. And I have over here quoted verse from Surah Al Imran, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu taqullaha haqqa tuqatihi wa la tamutunna illa wa antum muslimun. That Quran says that once you have come to this side and become muttaqi, then make sure that you submit to it completely for getting these benefits. And since life is linked to the next one, so over here it says wala tamutunna, that then you have given up the other option of shaitan and you have come to the path of Allah and stick to it if you want to get the benefits. The Quran summarizes its own conclusions, few important points for our wider reflection. There are last three verses which I've covered as part of this presentation. Zalika min ambail ghaibe nuhihe ilaika wa kunta ladihim is ajma'u amrahum wa hum yamkurun. Wa ma aksarun nasi walau harasta bimu'minin. Wa ma tas'aluhum alayhi min ajrin in huwa illa zikrul lil alamin. And now, having completed the account of Hazrat Yusuf and Hazrat Yaqub, now Quran has come to the general principles, and over here there are three important points covered. First is, O Rasool, these are those historical accounts which were not within your knowledge and which we have revealed to you via Wahi. You were not standing next to the brothers of Yusuf when they had agreed on their conspiracy and were engaged in secret plotting against Yusuf. Therefore, how could you know these events? We have seen this account in detail, and according to our understanding at this point in time, we have come across many points which point to the development of the human self. And we have seen that the way stories narrated, for example, in Bible or in the books of Hadith, that has nothing to do with what Quran is putting before us. Quran has gone into those details where human thought does not have access. We see the events physically as, these are noted in history, but Quran deals with the human self and its thought process, the finest details. That is why, because Allah is Latiful Khabir. This is also clear evidence of your being a messenger, but despite this, many people will not have Iman in this, no matter how much you may desire it, even though you do not ask any return from them for this. This is surely a guidance and message for the whole of mankind for all times. Now, I have gone through some further explanations on these three verses. Allah now guides us on few important aspects from this account. The first one is, after quoting Yusuf's sentiments, the Quran outlines 3 points for our guidance and invites us to make these part of our intellect through deeper reflection. This requires our conscious and persistent efforts. The accounts noted in the Quran point to those finer aspects of human psyche and its functioning which a superficial gaze and intellect can never witness as a reality. What is noted in the surah is not just a physical account of Yusuf, his brothers, his father, Aziz and his wife, king and his cohorts. So we should not focus disproportionately on this aspect. It is an account to provide instruction for today and all times to come. So that is where we should be concentrating. If our brain tries to take us to the physical side, that what happened to the goblet and why did that his wife did it, are those issues. Over here, we should look at it, that what is in it for us as of today. Because it is from Allah, the omniscient and omnipotent, hence it is based on the true facts of these events with details of the cognitive activity of the of the main players taking place in these scenarios. So examine their thought processes and relate these to our own in order to change our outer world. And if you remember in Surah Rabb, Quran says that the outer world of a nation cannot change unless they change their inner psyche. If we look around, most of the problems in the world are because of human thought process. And those thought processes then manifest themselves in the physical world. Keep in mind that people will not change just by our strong desire to see them changing. So this thing we should understand fully, that only self which can change is my own self. And we should not expect others to change just because I have changed and I'm trying to convince them. They will only change once their own inner thoughts tell them, or they themselves decide that this is in my benefit. It does not work like that. There is only one self which can change in direct proportion to its thinking and efforts, and that is the self of each one of us, period. A moment self which is developed should realize this fact that for this message of Allah, no outward remuneration is to be expected. It cannot be turned into a business. We can never ever turn Allah's way and Allah's work which we do into a business. So that is why whole of this Quran has strictly forbidden. And this is actually a sign of our developed self when we do not try to get benefit out of any material benefit out of the Quranic message. And this is important. And I was very conscious of it when I translated all these books. I said no profit is to be kept in these books. These books must be at the cost price, and that is what we did. Similarly, all the translation work which I did, I was very conscious of it, that I'm not going to charge anything for this labor or for doing this, because intellect was free to me. And I have benefited from the books of Allama Parvez. This is important. And this also goes for Idaratul Islam as well. That Idaratul Islam is not a business organization which is going to make profit. It has a specific purpose and we should remain focused on that. Because these digress our mind into something which affects our self, and if self is affected, then we cannot establish the system of deen. We cannot think about it. The reward for this is inbuilt within the efforts which the mu'minin make towards establishing the system of deen. So the reward which we get in terms of our self-development, we should appreciate that as well. For example, I myself appreciate the change which has occurred within my own self, which is totally, completely, or diametrically different from the one which I had before came to this path. And I'm sure all of us can recognize that and acknowledge it and know the benefit of it. And that is why Quran says, وَمَا تَسْأَلُهُمْ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ أَجْرٍ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا ذِكْرٌ لِلْعَالَمِينَ. This is because this is a zikr for us. And what else we want once Allah has guided us. So while we are earning our living, of course, within the man-made system, we have to earn a living as well. We should also spare some benefits, something out of our earnings towards this cause. And the more we do it, of course, the results will come to us earlier. Allah wants us to present evidence of the endeavors that we are making in this direction, and we should keep it in mind, just like Hazrat Yaqub and Hazrat Yusuf, Innal hukmu illa lillah. And we will go through this. I intend putting a presentation together once we finish with Surah Yusuf in our next meeting, and then we will put another one where we will look into the questions which need further elaboration. Now, finally, few points of interest from the life of Yusuf. Throughout this surah, Yusuf relates everything in his life to Allah, and the same goes for Yaqub. For example, over here he says, Innal hukma illa lillah, amara Allah ta'budu illa iyyahu zalikal deenul qayyimu walakinna aksaran nasi la ya'lamun. And remember, this is what he said to his companions in prison. That innal hukma illa lillah, that in this world, once you become the man of Wahi, then there is no hukum other than Allah's hukum. And we must follow that. Because if we follow man's hukum, then the world which we see around, that is the one which we deserve. Despite going through severe traumas of life from a very young age, Yusuf does not complain and does not suffer from PTSD in today's terms. Remember, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is quite common in the West. Iman in Allah, as noted in the Quran, raises our morale sky high, and we start to see things with a different perspective. So we should keep it in mind that how much Hazrat Yusuf went through right at an early age. First, he was discriminated in the family. Then he was put into a well, and then he landed up as a slave, a free person, at least some kind of a pseudo freedom he had in the family. And then what happened in Egypt, and the Quran has pointed to that. And then he lands up in prison, despite being innocent. And all these things never affected him psychologically. And it made him more determined to pursue what his own aim. And that aim was defined in the light of Wahi. And so there is a great lesson for us in that. At the macro scale level, the success of Yusuf was linked to establishment in the land to work for the rububiyyat of Allah. While at the micro scale, the Quran informs us that it also starts from individuals at the level of the family. A society is the sum total of individuals. The struggle between the brothers, the women, and just like Yusuf and Yaqub, who were also individuals, humans play out everything at all levels of the human world on a daily basis. And this drama is going on around us all the time. We witness this going on all around us. So-called leaders are also humans. So what I have said over here is that it is important for us that this story is not about just Hazrat Yusuf and his brothers. There was a bigger picture as well in which he established the system of rububiyyat. And we will discuss that in one of our presentations later. Man of Wahi, he has a far greater responsibility once he achieves power, or Allah gives him the power in the land. But at the same time, what this Quran has also focused on the relationship between him, brothers, and those women, and the caravan people, and all those around him, because that is what defines us. All these relationships, sum total of that makes a society. And societies, when they come together, they make a nation. And all these nations, when they come together, they make the world. So this is what we should keep it in mind, that this is all starts from a single seed, from a single human being. While detailing the salient points of this account and other accounts, Allah draws our attention to finer cognitive processes and values so that we can select these aspects and apply them to the development of ourselves. Just a repetition and reminding ourselves, these aspects lead to the sharpening of our intellectual abilities, which is essential. For example, in today's world, to remain firmly objective and never lose sight of our aim and the finitude of our physical existence. we should all the time be very clear that there is a deadline to our life. We are not going to stay here forever. So each day is valuable, and each day we should make use of it to put some increment to ourselves. So that is the point which I think all of us should take from Surah Yusuf. It should aid us in appreciating the significance of our own existence as humans and create a desire to identify and realize our latent potentials, and then apply these in our life to never be in despair and to relate all our deeds to Allah as Yusuf and Yaqub did, and as other messengers and men of Allah did in the past. So we are also doing the same. I know that we all are making an effort in this direction. So this presentation is, as we know, is going to be shared by many across the world. So the message is that we should not undervalue ourselves. And when we come to the Quran and the light of the Wahi, then our latent potentials become evident on us, and these potentials remain hidden from the eyes of those who do not come to the Quran. And that is why Hazrat Yaqub said, Inni alamu min Allahi ma la ta'lamun, that I have the knowledge of all those potentials, whereas you people do not have the knowledge of those potentials, despite the fact that you possess them, and you do not want to bring them out. And I can only give you the message, but you have to bring them out. You have to unlock your own hearts from inside, as the Quran says. And I put down here, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. And with that, we come to the end of this presentation. And thank you very much for your time.